Filmspotting is presented by Regal Unlimited, the all-you-can-watch movie subscription pass that pays for itself in just 2 visits. Sign up now in the Regal app or at the link in the show description and use code FILMSPOT25, that's FILMSPOT25, to receive your discount.
The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is a robot with countless irrelevant menu options. Which is why with USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable, all at the touch of a button. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
What kind of a show are you guys putting on here today?
You're not interested in art?
No.
Now look, we're going to do this thing. We're going to have a conversation.
From Chicago, this is Filmspotting, celebrating our 20th year. I'm Adam Kempenaar.
And I'm Josh Larson.
25 years. It's impressive.
Well, you figure you sleep 1/3 of your life. That knocks off 8 years of marriage right there. So you're down to 16 and change, and you're just a teenager at marriage. You can drive it, but there's still the occasional accident.
Yeah.
According to Bill Murray's calculation, we may only be teenagers at marriage or reviewing movies, Adam, but the clock says it's been 25 years since the dawn of the millennium. So it's time for some reflection.
And reflect we shall. This week, the top 25 films of the last 25 years.
It's all ahead.
After the show, Josh, it's Santori time.
After the show on Filmspotting.
More than this, you know there's nothing more than this.
This episode is brought to you by Heyday. Feeling stressed? Take a moment for yourself with Heyday. Stroll through rows of golden wheat, tend to cute barnyard animals, and discover the joys of a digital farm retreat. You don't have to hop in a car or catch a plane. Escape to the farm at the tap of a finger. With Heyday, you're not just tending to a farm, you're tending to yourself. Heyday. Search Heyday, that's Hay space DAY, in your favorite app store. Heyday is a free-to-play mobile game and offers optional in-app purchases and random rewards.
Welcome to Filmspotting. Josh, we just wrapped up the months-long project that is Filmspotting Madness, our bracket-style movie elimination tournament. This year's theme was the best of the century so far, which means that we have been contemplating the films of the last 25 years, weighing them against each other in high-stakes matchups for weeks and weeks. Why then was assembling a top 25 of the last 25 so damn hard?
Well, probably because our votes in the tournament, Adam, are lost to history. Unless you and Sam have like a spreadsheet of every vote everyone made, which I wouldn't put past you guys, honestly. But I think, we can forget the poor choices we made, the mistakes we made. This list, these 2 lists, it's going on the Filmspotting website. I mean, we're probably going to put versions on Letterboxd. People are going to be able to look back at this and potentially laugh at us. That's why it was hard.
This week, our top 25 films of the century, plus the return of Massacre Theatre. Let's jump right in, Josh. The top 25 films since the year 2000, 5 years before this show began. How did you set about accomplishing this feat?
I mean, you weren't kidding in this being hard, which I didn't expect. We did our best films of the 2010s list a few years ago. I thought that would be a helpful starting point. It was in a way. We just went through madness. But yeah, man, I needed a framework for actually putting together my personal list. And I'm looking at these dates, thinking about this, and I did realize fairly early on that this period, 2000 to 2025, it essentially covers my professional life as a critic. So I was writing reviews before 2000, pretty much as a freelancer, started that in 94, but I became a full-time movie critic for the Daily Naperville Sun in 2001, I'm pretty sure it was. So I've been doing this in some professional capacity, Adam, including with you since 2012 here on the show, during this entire period we're thinking about. So I kind of took a different approach than I did with our best movies of the 2010s list, which we did. That was in February of 2020. There I talked about how my list was going to be somewhere in between an annual top 10 in the moment list, that annual diary, and a canon list where we've had the distance to consider, informed consensus, that sort of thing. We do have a little bit more distance this time. We're looking back 25 years. So I could have taken the canon approach. I think that's a legit approach. But looking over these titles, I just couldn't get away from thinking of these in parallel with my career. So basically, my criteria was something like this. If I were to retire today, what movies would I choose to mark this time that I had, this period I covered while working as a film critic? And that led me to think about these movies in different ways. What are the movies I still hold close? What are the movies I championed? What were the ones I enjoyed discussing, reconsidering here on the show with others online? And maybe what were the ones that challenged me as a critic and brought out the best in me? So that's a lot of factors, but in my head, it at least gave me a place to make some of those tough decisions and head in certain directions in pulling 25 movies out of who knows how many over 25 years.
Any self-imposed restrictions? Because, our producer Sam decided to partake in the fun. He posted his top 25 already over on Letterboxd. We will link to it in our show notes, or you can find it on Letterboxd. And God bless him. Interesting list, strong list. I'm just going to say, not his top 25 films of the last 25 years, just by his own definition. It's not, because he chose to not feature multiple films from any single director, even though by his own admission within that list, and to me privately, he'd have at least 2 Wes Anderson films on there. He'd probably have 2 P.T. Anderson films on there. So it's a really good list, but I don't think by definition it's exactly what we're partaking in.
Yeah, I kind of headed that direction just instinctively. I know he proposed setting that as a rule for all of us, and I don't think there's anything wrong with including multiple films from the same director. So I didn't think we needed it as a rule, but I did head that way just because, again, the way I was thinking about this, I did want to spread the wealth. And though it was painful when it came down to choosing, say, spoiler, which Jordan Peele movie I'm actually going to pick, I liked that challenge and feel like it helped me clarify how I was forming my list in some ways. So I personally went that way. Sounds like you didn't, which I think is totally valid.
Yeah. And I like the thinking behind it, not only because it allows you to spread the wealth, but this is often why we are doing lists at all on this show, crystallizing why you love something. If you force yourself, for example, to only include, one Coen Brothers film, it might make you realize that that film you've always had in your number 2 slot might actually be the one you really love the most. And then you have to really investigate why that is. And that's the whole point. So I do understand that, but I don't think it's really the list. And I ended up with 2 directors having a pair of films in my top 25. One of them, a bit of a surprise. Not that the films I think will be a surprise to anybody, but if you said to me at the beginning of this process, this filmmaker would be one of only 2 who would have 2 films on your list, I don't know that I would have guessed him. I didn't really have a framework otherwise. Nothing as elaborate as you laid out, Josh. I kind of just went with my gut mixed with the incinerator approach, meaning I thought about the films through the lens of, can I imagine a world without these films existing? And that helped me think about the movies that I am the most passionate about. But I will tell you how I got there. I went to Letterboxd. I looked at the films of the last 25 years by decade, and I sorted all the movies that I had given 4.5 stars or 5 stars to. I had 164.
Okay.
I had to get that 164 somehow down to 25. And I just went through the list and applied that incinerator mindset, pulled movies out as I went, ultimately got it down to 25. So what we're going to do is we're not going to go into great detail about each one of these picks. That would be an excessively long show, even by Filmspotting standards. We are going to list them 25 down to 21, then 20 down to 16. But we're going to stop as we go and highlight one of those picks among those 5 choices. Josh, start us off.
okay, a surprise inclusion for me at 25, which came again thinking about my career and how I engaged with these movies, what they meant to me. I have The Witch in this slot, the advent of Robert Eggers' historical horror, still his most terrifying and theologically engaging work. So The Witch at 25. 24, Lovers Rock, Steve McQueen's safe space musical drama set almost entirely in a 1980 house party in London's Caribbean community. Number 23, Aftersun, Charlotte Wells' heartbreaking father-daughter drama, our 2022 Golden Brick winner, Adam. And worth noting, again, this lens that I've been putting on here, maybe more of a personal approach, but the past 25 years also parallel my daughter's lives, the older one being born in 2002, the other 2005. And here we've got this exquisite father-daughter drama. 22, The Boy and the Heron. Now, the consensus Miyazaki would probably be Spirited Away for a list like this, which I do love, but there's something about a master surprising you at the end of his career. Number 21, and this is the one I want to spend some more time on, Dick Johnson is Dead from 2020. Documentarian Kirsten Johnson fashioning just something utterly unique here. When her father, Dick Johnson, began to show very early signs of oncoming dementia, they decided together to chronicle his final days in two creative ways, ways that allowed them to kind of laugh together in the face of mortality. So they elaborately staged these dramatizations of the ways Dick could die, falling downstairs, an air conditioning unit crashing on his head. And then they also designed these ostentatious fantasy visions of Dick's glam afterlife. I knew Dick Johnson is Dead was something special when I first saw it, made my 2020 top 10 list. But man, since then, I think about this movie so often. And I think about other movies tackling this topic, and some of which can be equally moving or thought-provoking, but those somehow send me back to Dick Johnson is Dead, thinking about just the unique gem-like quality this particular film has. And I did rewatch this movie just last year, posted this on Letterboxd, more shattering with each small loss that life brings. So yeah, at that rate, Dick Johnson is Dead, it might nudge its way into my top 10 of the 21st century at some point, just the more I live and the more meaning this movie takes on. For now, though, I've got it at number 21.
She kills me multiple times.
Action!
The Resurrected Dad.
Yeah,
Resurrected
Dad.
It's a really powerful film. I actually wondered if Camera Person was in consideration for this list. I do prefer Dick Johnson is Dead. I would have that a bit higher. And the camera is one of those tools. The medium of film, art, often can be a platform for us to explore topics and ideas that we otherwise wouldn't feel safe doing. And who else gets the opportunity to witness their own funeral, to see how people really do feel about them, which is the opportunity that he gets here. But also, it's that great lament, something I noted back when we reviewed the film upon its release. Everyone says when a loved one, especially a parent, dies, I wish I had said this to him. I wish I had honored him this way when he was alive. Kristen Johnson takes care of that problem with this film.
Yeah, and a lot of that is done in their casual conversations, which are recorded as well. So it's not only these more like set pieces, which are the brilliant formal invention, but the candidness of the conversations they share also do what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. I said there was no framework, and that's true. But anyone who's been listening to the show for a while knows that while I don't necessarily come into the list-making process with a theme or themes in mind, ones often emerge over the course of putting the list together. And what emerged for me here, Josh, were these ideas. Reckonings with this increasingly, seemingly failed experiment we call America, manifest destiny and all its glorious consequences, with the mysteries of love and family, with art and reconciling reality and fantasy, and reckoning with your mortality Dick Johnson is Dead checks off a few of these boxes. You know, this is a good old-fashioned Team Adam list. And what's funny is I say all of that, and my number 25, I don't think really fits into any of those boxes, at least not neatly. It might be the only film on the list that doesn't. But I was really struggling to come up with a choice at number 25, and it's one that I imagine many will think is too low on this list. It's Mad Max Fury Road. George Miller.
25?
I'm putting it at
Okay.
25. 24, a film I caught up with recently because I had the opportunity to interview the filmmaker at the recent Chicago International Film Festival. It was a Palme d'Or winner. I really liked it when it came out. We reviewed it very favorably on the show, but watching Shoplifters again cemented it truly as one of the best films of the last 25 years. At number 23, I have one of those movies that is for me, and I don't care how anyone else feels about it. No, it's not Joe Wright's Pride and Prejudice, but it is Joe Wright's Atonement. And we're going to continue to get arty here with the next two. Following Atonement, Joshua Oppenheimer's The Act of Killing documentary. I have it number 22. And we're going to have a little bit of overlap. I've got it slightly higher. Charlotte Wells' Aftersun at 21. The movie I want to highlight is Joshua Oppenheimer's The Act of Killing. I considered a few other documentaries, Grizzly Man, Man on Wire, the James Marsh film from 2008. This was our Golden Brick winner from 2013. And the reason why it won the Brick, why it's on this list, goes back to something we discussed during our review, which was that it didn't feel like any documentary we had ever seen before. And sure, there were elements of it that felt like Herzog, felt like Errol Morris, who ended up being executive producers on the film. We referenced Sarah Polley's Stories We Tell in their blurring of fact and fiction and documentary and narrative styles, and also how we try to make sense of our lives and process the things we've done or experienced through narratives. But I don't know that we've ever met a real life character on screen, a real life monster on screen, and hopefully not in real life before, like Anwar Congo, who estimates that he murdered over 1,000 people as part of mass killings that occurred in Indonesia in the mid-60s. How does Oppenheimer tell his story? He decides to reenact a lot of these horrors, these killings, in surrealist fashion with these elaborate fantasy sequences inspired by Hollywood movies, which Anwar was, and he plays himself in these sequences. And it's just astonishing, and it's provocative, and for some, perhaps really troubling, especially since I believe Anwar remains unpunished for his deeds. Is this almost a celebration of him? Is it an exoneration? He's a collaborator in the artistic process. Why is Joshua Oppenheimer collaborating with someone who is such a monster? But it's one of those movies where, going back to Herzog and that ecstatic truth approach, when you decide to eschew facts and focus on elements like how Anwar sees himself, it can be really potent. How revealing is it ultimately to see this man through some of these reenactments envision a scenario where he has victims who are thanking him as if he's sort of a god for killing them and sending them to heaven. This is the way this character is now processing his guilt, the denial, the moral compromises that he has made to go on living. And we do see a portrait of a man who we feel no sympathy for, but who Oppenheimer's intimate camera does show how that shield is starting to wear down more and more. It's not really a movie I can play a clip from that most people would be able to follow who are listening anyway. But I mentioned Morris and Herzog, so I wanted to play a clip, Josh, from an interview that Vice did with Errol Morris and Werner Herzog talking about the film and the achievement that it is. And this approach, this daring approach that Oppenheimer takes as a filmmaker.
Immediately knew I had never seen anything like that. I had never seen anything as powerful, as frightening, and as surreal as what was on the screen. And I immediately said, this is big. This is truly, truly big.
That's Werner Herzog on The Act of Killing, my number 22 film of the last 25 years.
Probably in my 26 to 30 slot. I did have this. I think we both did in our best of the 2010s list. And yeah, one of those tough cuts for me. It's hard to imagine anyone seeing this film and thinking Oppenheimer is, not even just celebrating, but being a bit at a distance about Congo and not having a point, a purpose to this project. Because to me, when you use the word reckoning, it's so crucial here. Oppenheimer is leading Congo to a reckoning. And this is a reckoning that at one point prompts literal retching in one of just the most arresting moments in this documentary. It reminds me, of something we would see a number of years later in Jonathan Glazer's The Zone of Interest, that response to facing the horrors you are responsible for. That one, work of fiction, of course, and we're actually seeing the real thing in The Act of Killing. So yeah, definitely one that I considered for my list as well. All right, our next group of 5, starting at number 20, I have The Florida Project. For me, the pinnacle of Sean Baker's empathy cinema, set in a short-term Florida hotel just outside of Disney World. Number 19, Cemetery of Splendor. We are in the midst of an Andrei Tarkovsky marathon, Adam. Stalker is up next week, I believe. And I do feel that Thai filmmaker Apichatpong Weerasethakul is the closest thing that we have to Tarkovsky right now, just in terms of embracing the mystery of spirituality. So this is a gentle interior epic from 2016. In the 18 slot, Ex Machina, Alex Garland. This is the terrifying flip side for me of Steven Spielberg's AI, artificial intelligence, which may come up a little bit later. Number 17, I have Borat. And number 16, I have Meek's Cut Off, Kelly Reichardt's fable of pioneers who are lost on the Oregon Trail. And to your point, Adam, about, a national reckoning, thinking about the last 25 years in that context, this to me is an increasingly apt parable about the United States maybe being lost from the very beginning. But let's return to Borat on a similar theme. Borat, it's been a while. This came out in 2006, so a reminder. This is British comedian Sacha Baron Cohen's tour of America in the guise of a boorish, offensive Kazakh television reporter. Much of this is in bad taste. Almost all of it is hilarious. But here's what Baron Cohen as Borat finds. He talks to a Tennessean who's comfortable enough once Borat reveals his bigotry to launch into a poisonous tirade. He talks to a Hummer dealer who doesn't question Borat's request for a vehicle that could easily run over a person. Oh, for the days when Hummers were the only ridiculously oversized vehicles on the road. Seems like we're awash in them now. How about the crowd's response to Borat's speech at a rodeo?
My name is Borat. I come from Kazakhstan. Can I say first, we support your war of terror. May we show our support to our boys in Iraq. May USA kill every single terrorist. May George Bush drink the blood of every single man, woman, and child of Iraq.
This movie showed us who the United States was in 2006. And maybe then we thought it was only in a few pockets. These places that Baron Cohen managed to find and expose. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the Obama years seemed to cover those pockets up. And I'm speaking strictly for those of us who don't experience the sort of, discriminatory ignorance on a daily basis. Those of us who could turn a blind eye to this. But I don't know, man. I think if we've learned anything in the last 9 months or so, it's that what Borat showed us actually represents a huge chunk of this country. I mean, not for nothing. I came across a clip while looking for Borat clips of Sacha Baron Cohen from his Ali G show, where he interviewed an oblivious Donald Trump. So as for Borat itself, it still offers laughs today, but man, they are extra bitter now.
I can only imagine. I'm not sure I can bring myself to watch Borat clips. Josh, we're going to have some more crossover as we get into this next batch of 5. And even though the second choice you're going to hear the main character is a woman, and the film is certainly largely told from her point of view, there is still a lot of testosterone in these first 4 titles. The overlap, Ex Machina, Alex Garland's film, I have at 20. The film I was referencing a moment ago is Meek's Cutoff. That's the second.
Here we go.
At 19. One of our Filmspotting Fest titles, cementing a spot on my list, Take Shelter, Jeff Nichols' film starring Michael Shannon, at 18. At number 17, maybe it was because of that conversation I just had with Violet Luca about David Cronenberg and reminding me of the power, the mythological headiness of A History of Violence, that Viggo Mortensen performance. That was my first number 1 film on any top 10 list in the history of Filmspotting back in 2005. That's at number 17. So now we're going to cut all that machismo, Josh, with my number 16 choice. And listen, I also think Portrait of a Lady on Fire is an incredible film. I considered it for this top 25. But I love the subtle, potent magic of Céline Sciamma's follow-up, Petit Maman, even more.
Okay.
This is a movie about an 8-year-old girl named Nellie who has just lost her grandmother. She's helping her parents clean out her mother's childhood home. Her mother has to leave. And then Nellie encounters a girl of a similar age out in the woods as she's building a treehouse. This isn't really a spoiler. The movie isn't shying away from it. You will discover it for yourself fairly early into the movie. Turns out this girl is Nellie's mother. How is it that Nellie's mother has become an 8-year-old girl all of a sudden who's transported to this time and place? The movie doesn't address it. The movie doesn't need to. It was my number 1 film of 2021. I called it a little miracle. I praised its strongly defined sense of place and how the place was twofold because it references the setting and how it uses the location, how Sciamma uses the setting and the woods and the houses, but also the psychological space where you are really locked into and experiencing through a particular character, and in this case, a particular character's perspective. It's subtle, as I said, but also really sophisticated in its camera work. It's maybe not quite as flashy as Portrait of a Lady on Fire or as vivid in terms of its colors, but it's still extremely elegant, and it should be. It's shot by the same cinematographer, Claire Matone. Criterion recognized the magic of the film. They released the film in an edition in 2023, and a writer named So Mayer provided the essay. I want to read what she wrote. Taking place over 3 days that blend past and future, Petit Maman proposes a cosmic mystery that, like an acorn, you can fit in your pocket. Should the film explain how Nellie and Marion meet? I ask my viewing companion, Issy, age 6.5. She shrugs. I like it when things are a mystery forever, because then one day you can work it out. The film's folding time feels familiar to her. Growing up takes forever. Then one day you work it out, and you're back in childhood. Through cinema, the time slip is that simple. Editing creates the illusion of the path through the woods, running from future to present. Production design reinforces the sense of overlapping temporalities. Mid-century modern wallpaper, tiles and furniture based on Sciamma's memories of her grandparents' homes, cueing Nellie to recognize the house that Marion has been escaping while she awaits surgery for the same unnamed genetic condition that means Marion's mother uses a hospital bed and walks with a cane. And it really is that simple. That's what I mean by subtle but sophisticated and elegant. There's one scene, Josh, where we do transport through time with the camera just holding on Nellie's face. And the woods provide this portal. It's absolutely a film like Miyazaki's work, like another film for adults and kids that we've referenced a few times on this show and multiple people associated with our show love, The Secret of Rowan Inish by John Sayles, a movie you can watch with your children, but again, is a movie for adults. And it is an example of that quiet, kind of conflict-free cinema that Sciamma specializes in, but not drama-free, not stakes-free, conflict-free in the sense that she intentionally is trying to remove traditional structures and power dynamics that distance and divide characters. It's something that she's talked about quite a bit. It's something she talked about when the movie came out in an interview with Mubi. Here again, the movie's in French, so not great for radio for me to play a clip from Petit Maman, but I will play a clip of Celine Sciamma talking about her approach to the film.
I wanted to depart from the duo of the mother-daughter and really look at a trio, which feels right. And a trio of a grandmother, a mother, and a daughter, and to look at that trio, but also to abolish the classical hierarchy that there is, and to look at it through a lens of equality between a mother and a daughter, rather than some form of hierarchy. So bringing horizontality to family relationship is a twist that maybe the magic of the film, actually, maybe the magic trick of the film.
I was surprised, Josh, looking through my notes. I couldn't find my notes for this film. I think it came out in that kind of end of year limbo where I watched it for end of year planning for top 10 prep. Obviously, it did end up paying off as my number one film of the year, but we didn't get a chance to talk about it in depth, and it really just played on the festival circuit, getting that end of year kind of New York, LA release. So we didn't get a lot of feedback on it. I feel like it's a wildly underseen film. Everyone loves to talk about Portrait of a Lady on Fire, and for good reason. But man, this film is a gem.
Who was it who wrote that Criterion essay? Because wow, an acorn you can put in your pocket. That is
Mayer is her name.
That is some fantastic writing and a great way of just, capturing this little movie. You're right about the subtlety. That's what makes it work, makes it so special. You could have blown this concept out in crazy ways, and Sciamma does not choose to do that, to her credit. It made me think of a movie that, boy, was kind of in the running for this list, Where the Wild Things Are, from Spike Jonze, in terms of capturing a childhood experience that adults also can tap into. But yeah, I like the swerve. I like the swerve away from the canon pick here. So that brings us to number 15. All right, we're moving along. At 15, it's my Paul Thomas Anderson pick, Phantom Thread. At 14 is Children of Men, Alfonso Cuarón's dystopian drama. It was great in 2006, largely hailed then, I think, as a masterpiece of craft, but now we're recognizing it for its social commentary and just how incisive that has been for each passing year. Number 13, Voltaire, my favorite. Pedro Almodovar, his Hitchcockian riff with just a luminous performance from Penelope Cruz. At number 12, came out in 2000. We're going right to the first eligible year. It's Bamboozled. I loved Spike Lee's hand grenade about Black representation in media back then. When it came out, it's only proven as well to be more biting since. I had to have Spike on this list. And number 11, I've got Inception. I do think this goes back to this, thing you were talking about of how, what is our actual best list? And I would say Dunkirk is Nolan working at the fullest extent of his powers, but man, Inception was such a thrilling leveling up from his first two Batman films, the way it combined the blockbuster skills and thrills there with the brains of The Prestige and Memento. So I went with Inception. I've got it at number 11, but let me say a few more words about Phantom Thread. Paul Thomas Anderson has gotten plenty of attention in Filmspotting Madness, best of the century so far, deservedly so. I have long suspected, though, Adam, that Phantom Thread would supplant Punch Drunk Love, actually, as my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson film, and that is what happened last December when I led a Cinema Interruptus series on Phantom Thread over at the Gene Siskel Film Center. Interruptus can be a gauntlet for a movie in terms of testing its greatness. Not every film can stand up to the scrutiny of frame-by-frame dissection over a number of days. And Phantom Thread is one of those that just passed with flying colors. We're back to the subtlety here. A subtlety to the artistry on display. We think of Paul Thomas Anderson's grand flourishes, especially in something like probably the consensus pick for this list, There Will Be Blood, which are thrilling in their own way to experience. But the subtlety he brings to Phantom Thread in terms of the camera work, the framing, and the incorporation of Johnny Greenwood's score. And then there's this endlessly mysterious romantic relationship at the movie's center between Daniel Day-Lewis's mid-century fashion designer and Vicky Creep's model/muse, a muse who turns the tables on him in delicious ways.
I want you flat on your back, helpless, tender, open, with only me to help. And then I want you strong again. You're not going to die. You might wish you're going to die, but you're not going to. You need to settle down a little.
So after 4 days of Interruptus, we still did not know exactly what to make of their dynamic. That's where the arguments and the discussions and the debates ended with no conclusion. That's all to the movie's credit. I think it's entirely purposeful on the part of Anderson and his actors. So Phantom Thread is the one I'm going with here. And by the way, stay tuned for a return of Cinema Interruptus to the Gene Siskel Film Center later this summer. I'll share more details about that soon. Yeah.
Okay. Are you going to dole out little hints on social media like you did last time?
Maybe. That was kind of fun. Yeah.
Okay. 15 through 11. I've got a Christopher Nolan choice, but I'm going with the movie that was the film that made me discover Christopher Nolan. That is Memento. At number 14, how do you pick a Martin Scorsese film when he's made, Wolf of Wall Street is a film I adore, Josh. Tough choice for me to leave that off, but you've also got Killers of the Flower Moon. I could consider The Irishman too, but just a couple months ago, I was on this show singing the praises of the Best Picture winner from what year was it? Around 2000.
Oh man.
8-ish. Definitely not 2007, 2006, perhaps. The Departed.
2006, you got it.
Yeah, The Departed is just one of my most rewatchable films. At number 13, another highly rewatchable film, and another one that might be a bit of a surprise for folks. I've got a Spike Lee film. It's Inside Man.
That's a great one.
At 12, Wong Kar-wai, In the Mood for Love, possibly a bit low. Also a bit too low, perhaps. Terrence Malick's The Tree of Life at 11. The movie I want to talk a little bit about is Inside Man, because 25th Hour is maybe the more fashionable choice here, Josh. Perhaps both of us are surprising people with our picks. Black Klansman would have been a very good choice in this slot as well. I think I had that in my best films of the decade list.
Chirac, I love Chirac.
Yeah, 2020 Chirac's very good as well. This movie could be perceived as just a heist movie, just a very good heist movie, hopefully. And 25th Hour is really Spike's 9/11 movie. But how can you not think about this film and not remember Jodie Foster and Denzel Washington having a conversation draped by the American flag behind them on the wall, and we will never forget. And the conversations about bin Laden's nephew and Al-Qaeda and the character who I believe is Indian talking about how he gets thrown out of a bank as a hostage and he gets harassed and he goes to the airport and he can't go through security without a random selection. And what does Denzel's character, Detective Frazier, say? I bet you can get a cab, though. This is a film, going back to one of my themes, Josh, it's a film fundamentally about the rich getting richer on the backs of the poor and persecuted with no repercussions, except maybe we have a crew here and we don't know. This is one of the brilliant aspects of this film. We don't know really what is at the core of this heist and whether or not these bank robbers, maybe they really are like Robin Hood and they're people that we ultimately are going to have some respect for, and they're trying to level the playing field a little bit. Maybe only in the movies is there the possibility of justice. Otherwise, Josh, this is a film where every scene is about transactions of power. It's about leverage. It's about what can I get in exchange for helping you? What are you going to give me? How is this going to pay off for me? How is this going to serve me? If there's no benefit for me, then there's no reason for us to be talking. Think about the conversation near the end of the film after this all sort of plays out, and Fraser is talking to his captain, and the captain tells him to bury it. And his line is, "Nobody's breathing down my neck for answers. I'm not going to breathe down yours." As if that would really be the only reason to continue to follow through with this case. Doesn't matter what the detective thinks might be happening. Doesn't matter what was stolen. Whatever injustice could be at the core of it. We have nobody who's saying solve it. So you know what? Move on. Find other cases. There is a legitimately great twist to Inside Man. It's a legitimately great Denzel Washington performance with one of my favorite line readings of all time.
Any other proposals?
Oh, please do not say proposals. My girlfriend, she wants a proposal from me.
You think you're too young to get married?
No, I'm not too young. No. Too broke. Maybe I should rob a bank.
You love each other?
Yeah, we do.
The money shouldn't really matter.
Thank you, bank robber.
I'm just saying.
Thank you, bank robber. It's got one of my favorite Spike Lee double dolly shots with Denzel and the gunshot, but every frame, every angle is purposeful. It is pure Spike Lee.
As I said, you had to have Spike on this list, and I love that we have two different titles because it speaks to exactly what you laid out there. I think, Do the Right Thing and Malcolm X looms so large over his filmography that perhaps casual moviegoers, they think, yeah, he had that pinnacle and he's been working, but nothing was close to that. And that's not the case. Like from 2000 on, he made so many strong, incredible films, the ones you listed, the ones we picked. So yeah, this worked out really nice, I think.
Whoever heard of bank robbers escaping on a plane with 50 hostages? You saw Dog Day Afternoon. You're stalling. Why? I don't know.
More top 25 of the last 25 to come. Our top 10 films of the 2000s ahead. For our complete picks, if you just can't wait, you're listening and you want to cheat, you want to jump into the future, you can go to filmspotting.net/lists and find our choices there.
Listening is the number one thing you can do to support an independently produced show like Filmspotting. There are a couple more things you could do. You could take a minute to give us a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Doesn't matter if you're a first-time listener or have been listening for 20 years. Every new review helps us reach new listeners. Another way to support us, join the Filmspotting family at filmspottingfamily.com. We want to thank advisory board member. That's the top tier you could choose there. It's James Pickering from Chicago. Thanks, James.
Hopefully, James will be on our Filmspotting advisory board call as we're taping this. We're 2 nights away from our May call. We have those quarterly with our advisory board members. A lot of fun stuff to talk about this month. James writes, I found you several years ago when I was searching for reviews of Brokeback Mountain, a movie that certainly should be in contention for our list. I am a gay man, and that was a big movie for my community because it was a gay love story in the mainstream. I loved how you reviewed it on your show and your overall support and representation of the LGBTQIA+ community. It is very hard to find good film critics who review LGBT movies. I love your show, and I love that you're in Chicago as well. A random film or filmmaker that James loves, Meet Joe Black, a movie I still have never seen in its entirety. I just still can't bring myself to watch that film after looking at Brad Pitt's dumb face.
Whoa.
Well, he's intentionally making a dumb face as the character.
I knew this was not going to appeal to you, but you went hard there.
Yeah.
I believe you'll find a glowing review of Meet Joe Black
of course.
in the regional news archives. If you want to track it down.
Okay. A movie James credits with becoming a cinephile like so many, I'm guessing, 90s kids. Jurassic Park. Thank you, James, for joining the family and for all of those years of listening. In addition to keeping us doing what we're doing, your support comes with perks. You get to listen early and ad-free. You get our weekly newsletter. You get exclusive opportunities like being part of our Filmspotting Family Discord. You get monthly bonus shows like our April bonus, Ask Us Anything. Podcast delivered per usual, Josh, except if you use Spotify, you got the video edition. And if you went to youtube.com/filmspotting or you're a subscriber there, you could watch me, you, and producer Sam answer those questions, answer them talking video, images, not just talking, moving pictures.
Moving pictures is what they call them, Adam.
Yeah, how about that? May bonus, we'll see if we do that one over video as well. We do plan to. It will be a draft with our Filmspotting Madness bracket contest winner. And yeah, that winner is once again Ricky Kendall from the UK, won Filmspotting Madness once again. We are going to ask the advisory board to weigh in on this. Maybe even give them the vote. At least that's what I was thinking we might do.
Yeah, I like that.
Josh, I don't know if
they'll help decide the topic.
You have a horse in this race. Ricky gave us two options. I think I do have a clear favorite at this point. The two options were we draft the best films, me, you, Sam, and Ricky. We draft the best films, the top 5 or 5 rounds of movies from the Sight and Sound top 50.
Mm-hmm.
Or we do 5 rounds of all-time movie directors, our favorite directors. Except here's the catch. They have to be deceased.
Okay. The way you put that, I now have a clearer sense of what the second option is.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I was going to ask the advisory board to weigh in on that. But
okay.
I think
no
I know.
No PTA, no Wes.
Yeah, that I got it. And let me think about that, which one I prefer. Both good topics. They will be, make for some good fighting for drafting purposes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you would like to become a Filmspotting family member, you can do that at filmspottingfamily.com. Check your local listings, of course, but my revisit of Pride and Prejudice, Josh, that coming back to big screens for its 20th anniversary was so successful. Why not check out at Regal Cinemas Monty Python and the Holy Grail 50th anniversary? I've never seen that in a theater before. You also have coming up very soon the movie everybody is dying to see. We will, of course, review it here on the show. Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning. Will it indeed be the final reckoning, Josh? Weigh in.
It will. I'm going to say it will. I know it goes against all instincts of the industry and possibly Tom Cruise.
Wow.
But I think he's going to call it quits after this for the Mission Impossible films.
You can see The Final Reckoning. You could see Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and you might be able to see him for free with Regal Unlimited. It's the all-you-can-watch movie subscription pass that pays for itself in just 2 visits. Right now, Regal is offering Filmspotting listeners endless movies for less. If you sign up for Regal Unlimited using code FILMSPOT25, you'll get 10% off a 3-month subscription. Hey, here's another idea. Go see Sinners if you haven't seen it already. Got to see it on the big screen. And if you have seen it, watch it again. Regal Unlimited is the only truly limitless movie subscription pass. You get to see any standard 2D movie anytime with no blackout dates or restrictions. And you don't just save money on tickets, you also save on snacks. Members get 10% off all non-alcoholic concessions. Sign up now in the Regal app or at the link in the description and use code FILMSPOT25 to receive your discount.
Hilton brings you new ways to stay, with experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
You think this is funny?
Dad, it's me.
Producer Sam is baiting one of us, Josh. I'm just not totally sure who. Joaquin Phoenix in 2019's Joker. Phoenix won an Oscar for his performance as Arthur Fleck. We also named him one of our top performers of the 2010s back in 2020. He was your number 3. My number 1. We bring all this history up because next week on the show, we're going to continue our best of the century so far conversation with some performers talk. A little twist there, though. Not a top 5, not a top 10, or even a top 25. We're going to draft.
A draft. All right. And yeah, I mean, anytime I can hear a part of that brilliant performance from Joker, I'm happy. So I think you're the target here.
Also next week, we'll return to our Andrei Tarkovsky marathon. I'm going to get to finally cross off. You heard this if you listened to our April bonus content for Filmspotting family members. What is, if not my number one, certainly one of my top 3 current biggest movie blind spots. It's Tarkovsky's 1979 film, Stalker, number 43 on the Sight and Sound Top 100. I'm going to see it, and I'm going to live to talk about it, hopefully. And
I think you will.
Hope I have things to say.
I think we have, I mean, it's dense, but even denser Tarkovsky titles ahead. This one has, for me at least in my memory, just enough of a sci-fi framework that I feel like I have better footing than in some of his. So I cannot wait. Cannot wait to see this again.
I did very much love the sci-fi framework of his Solaris.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. For a schedule of future Filmspotting episodes, you can go to filmspotting.net and click on episodes right at the top of the page.
This week on our sister podcast, The Next Picture Show, looking at cinema's present via its past, it's part 2 of their Dead of Night pairing, which means they get to talk about Ryan Coogler's Sinners. So much to say about Sinners. I feel like our review, Adam, I think we were trying not to spoil too much, so we didn't even get into the after credits scene, that sort of stuff. I'm sure they will on The Next Picture Show. Of course, they paired this with and previously discussed the 1996 Robert Rodriguez Quentin Tarantino collaboration From Dusk Till Dawn, that one starring George Clooney alongside Tarantino. New episodes of The Next Picture Show drop every Tuesday, and you can find them wherever you get your podcasts. Oh, time now for the long-awaited by Adam.
Long-awaited.
By Adam particularly.
So many emails.
Return of Massacre Theatre. We perform a scene, and you get a chance to win a Filmspotting prize. Oh, it's the annual Rusty Massacre Theatre performance, we should say, Adam. After
That's our excuse.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what it is all the other times, but for this episode, for this edition, it is indeed.
Tear sticks are doping for actors. Do you want to be the Lance Armstrong of theater? No. Get off the stick.
We move on now to this week's edition of Massacre Theatre. We'll see if you can get the connection to this week's show. Josh, the only note, we are going to change a character's name, try to make it, I suppose, a little bit harder, and we're going to excise a character from the scene. They're extraneous. There, I said it.
Okay. I think that's fair. And let's set a low bar for ourselves. Let's just try to not both sound exactly the same.
I don't know how we're going to pull that off. I had the same fear.
I don't know if we have the skills to distinguish.
It's 2 middle-aged white guys.
All right, well, there's another clue for you.
With no funny voices.
Exactly. I mean, these are not bland performers either.
No, not necessarily.
That's what's embarrassing. I mean, these are 2 of, considered very charismatic performers, no matter what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we'll be able to capture that.
Yeah, I'm supposed to show a little bit of range here, which will be the death of me. I'm going to start it off. You're going to give me the action.
And action.
I believe the most likely outcome will be our collective demise.
Not if we strictly follow the rules of time travel. That means no talking to our past selves, no betting on sports events.
I'm going to stop you right there, Peter. Are you seriously telling me that your plan to save the universe is based on Back to the Future? Is it?
No.
Good. You had me worried there, because that'd be horseshit. That's not how quantum physics works.
I know you got a lot on the line. Got a wife, a daughter. But I lost someone very important to me. A lot of people did. And now we have a chance to bring her back, to bring everyone back. And you're telling me that you won't even...
That's right. Peter, I won't. Even. And scene.
Wow. The drama there at the end.
Say now. Hit me with that now again.
Now. Close? Anywhere? Am I in the ballpark?
You're a cartoon superhero. Maybe that's appropriate.
Interesting.
If you know what film we just massacred, email the movie's title and your name and location to feedback@filmspotting.net. Your deadline is Monday, May 19th. We'll select the winner randomly from all the correct entries and announce it in a couple of weeks.
Finding a new job is stressful. But with Indeed, it doesn't have to be. Just fill out your Indeed profile with your skills, experience, and desired salary. The more you fill out, the better your matches will be. And hearing from hiring managers will be 2 times more likely. Relax. That's your Indeed profile sending opportunities your way. Indeed, the world can work better.
Let your head rest in my hand. Relax. I got you, I promise. I'm not gonna let you go. Hey, man, I got you. There you go.
We're sharing our top 25 films of the last 25 years. We have 10 more to go, the top 10. And we just heard a clip from Moonlight. Josh, I imagine that was one that was tough to leave off. I, in fact, assumed it would be on your list.
Yeah, I think we're both, unfortunately, leaving Moonlight off, and it was in that next group, the honorable mentions list. And I don't have a good defense. Honestly, it's a movie I love. I guess maybe having not revisited it recently, it strikes me as a cultural moment. And I'm trying not to downgrade the movie itself in any way because I do greatly admire it. But I think back of it as a cultural moment with the Oscars and everything, than a movie that could just squeak onto that top 25 for me.
Okay, let's hear your 10 through 6.
Okay, I've got a movie at number 10 here that we have already heard another clip from, Lost in Translation. I'm a sucker for Sofia Coppola's sensory cinema. When we did our best of the 2010s list, I had the bling ring on that one, but here Lost in Translation gets the nod because I still think it's her best film. Number 9, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. So glad we did that Sacred Cow review last year, Adam, to affirm its brilliance, its emotional power. Number 8, Finding Nemo. Had to have Pixar represented here, and this is my favorite Pixar film. I didn't try to complicate things. Went with Finding Nemo at number 8. Number 7 is AI, Artificial Intelligence. It is number 3 in my Spielberg rankings, and as its reputation continues to rise, it would maybe rise in those rankings, except for, a couple movies like Jaws and E.T. Number 6, and I got to explain this one a little bit probably because it's my unlikely Coen brothers pick. Let's talk Coens, Adam. I know they got a lot of attention in Filmspotting Madness, but I do think it's okay to give them some more time because my pick didn't come up. Did True Grit make the bracket? I can't remember.
It did not.
Did not. Yeah. As much as I admire No Country for Old Men, for me, this actually came down to Hail Caesar or True Grit. Hail Caesar was on my list of the best of the 2010s when we did that. But for this list, I did find myself gravitating towards True Grit, which is the Coen brothers remake of a John Wayne Western, this time starring Jeff Bridges, Haley Steinfeld, and Matt Damon. I've spent a lot of time over the years with True Grit. I wrote about it in Movies Are Prayers as a prayer of confession. Back when we were still doing the Think Christian Movie Club, the Coen brothers were the subject of our first series. We considered a handful of their films, both True Grit and No Country for Old Men were part of that. So yeah, really dug into those movies then. Over the years, though, True Grit just kept offering more and more rewards. That Carter Burwell score, which riffs on religious standards, the writing, both the dialogue and then the construction, just so crisp. This has also some of the Coens' most poetic imagery, evoking ideas about confession, vengeance, failure, forgiveness. And of course, you have Bridges' richly tragicomic performance.
I'm a foolish old man who's been drawn into a wild goose chase by a harpy in trousers and a nincompoop. Mr. LaBeef, he can wander the Choctaw Nation for as long as he likes. Perhaps the local Indians will take him in and honor his gibberings by making him chief. You, sister, may go where you like. Our engagement is terminated. I'll bow out.
So thinking about True Grit in terms of my other Coen options for this list, I liked how it has a nice balance also of No Country's fatalism and Hail Caesar's zaniness. So that's where I landed, True Grit at number 6.
True Grit is still a film that I've only seen one time when it came out, liked it, but remember, and I know I've said this before on the show, maybe multiple times, remember feeling underwhelmed in the wake of No Country for Old Men. Remember feeling like it was a bit of a disappointment. But as I reflect on it, you're right. Not only Bridges, But Haley Steinfeld, the movie that introduced us to her, Matt Damon, Josh Brolin, the Burwell score, as you said, I know I need to revisit that film badly. A film that we revisited fairly recently on the show, and it definitely held up. It's our Filmspotting Madness winner. Filmspotting listeners said this was the best film of the last 25 years. I've got it at number 10, Paul Thomas Anderson's There Will Be Blood. At number 9, here's my second Christopher Nolan pick, Josh. No, it's not Inception. Of course, it's Interstellar.
I thought you were going with this earlier, but yeah, I forgot you have the multiple film by a director. That's okay with you. So gotcha.
That's right. I had Memento earlier. Yep. Now I've got Interstellar. What were you saying about Inception? The combination of the brains, but the brawn, that kind of big
just
budget
the blockbusterism of the Batman.
The blockbuster. Yeah. Well, you also have with Interstellar me bawling. I'll throw in that B word every time I see it. At number 8, overlap in this section for us, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Number 7, Greta Gerwig's Little Women. At number 6, here we are, sort of in lockstep, the aforementioned No Country for Old Men, the Coen Brothers, a movie that I thought for sure I would have in my top 5 when this process began, ended up bumping it down to 6. So I'll say just a few words about Greta Gerwig's Little Women. And the only reason I'm going to say just a few words, Josh, is I haven't seen it in quite some time, and I don't really know where to start with it. I looked back at my notes for this film, Josh. I did see it twice when it came out. Loved it so much the first time, I had to go back and see it again. I think I had it as my number 2 film of its year. I opened my Google Doc. I have headers and a bunch of bullet points underneath for bold strokes, great camera, great dialogue, and random stuff I love. And that all starts on page 3. What does Tracy Letts, publisher character, say in the film? I love it. It's romantic. It's very moving. That's very emotional. That's what he says describing Joe March's book. And that's a pretty good summation for me of how I feel about Little Women. I'm going to confess to something or reconfess to something I said at the time. I'm a little embarrassed about it, of course, certainly as an English major as well, but it is what it is. As I say all the time here, we all have blind spots, whether they be movies or books. I've never read the story. I've also never seen the 1994 version of the movie, so I really can't compare it. My point, though, is I have no attachment to these characters, and this movie made me love every single character in this universe, every single person in that March household or adjacent to it. I looked at Letterboxd. I mentioned that I saw the movie twice. And I mentioned as well that our producer, Sam, has already posted his top 25 films of the century so far, Josh. We share 2 films in the top 10. One of them hasn't been mentioned yet. The other one is Little Women. He has it at number 4. Do you know how many times Sam has seen, and I'm going to assume the number of times does correspond to the number of times he's logged it on Letterboxd? How many times he's logged it?
I know Sam is a rewatcher of movies. And this is one that could be, it's a great annual Christmas movie as well. So,
and that's when he watches it.
Oh, okay. So I can't, beyond those years, maybe 8?
I think it's 7. He has seen it at least 7 times. So you're very close. But I love the audaciousness of Gerwig's direction of the screenplay. I know some of the choices she's made in terms of the adaptation, the confidence that she has to adapt this material, including the nonlinear structure, which is something that stands out right away. If you look at the screenplay, there's a note on an early page that says, when the text is in red, it indicates that it's the past timeline, which begins in winter of 1861. When the text is in black, it indicates that it's the present timeline, which begins in fall of 1868. Both timelines move forward from their origin point, like Gerwig is making Christopher Nolan's Memento or something. And she said in a New York Times article, back when the film came out, as a child, my hero was Joe March, but as an adult, it's Louisa May Alcott. And so you've got these meta narrative elements to it that can greatly inform, if you're aware of those things, can greatly inform your appreciation and understanding of the film. Or if you're like me and you know nothing about it, you can still love this film, and you can love the agency that she gives to characters. You can love the updating that she does to a character like Joe and some of the choices that her character makes that still doesn't feel anachronistic or doesn't feel like, I imagine, it's compromising the original source material. At least that's the feeling I get from people who love very much that original Louisa May Alcott book. And that performance from Saoirse Ronan really did cement her as one of our best actresses.
You know, I just feel like women, they have minds. And they have souls as well as just hearts. And they've got ambition and they've got talent as well as just beauty. And I'm so sick of people saying that love is just all a woman is fit for. I'm so sick of it. But I'm so lonely.
Little Women, to me, is Greta Gerwig's best, and I also don't think she's missed yet. So incredibly strong film, and it really is, among all the things you were talking about, when you touch on as a work of adaptation, it's so deft and so clever how it balances that tricky thing of not being slavish to the material, but not, going off in a completely contrary direction to what the original novel was interested in. So yeah, on top of all of it's just standing on its own merits as a great movie, it manages that as well. Okay, we're down to our top 5. And as I look at my titles here, I'm realizing now that I had to make some tough choices because I did limit myself to one film per director here. So at number 5, my Jordan Peele pick, I went with Us. At number 4, oh man, this one gave me fits. For Wes Anderson, I went with The Royal Tenenbaums, and I didn't really want to go chalk here. Isle of Dogs was on my best of the 2010s list.
I'm a little surprised.
And I was leaning that way, but I do have Royal Tenenbaums ranked higher, and I just rewatched this, Adam, for our Gene Hackman top 5. It made the greatness of Wes Anderson's third feature just undeniable. So number 4, The Royal Tenenbaums. Number 3, this was tough for me in terms of a director choice. Here's where I've got Mad Max Fury Road. It tumbled for you, I think, from our best of the 2010s, but for me, it held strong. Not quite as high as I had it there, but at number 3. And I did really like Furiosa. So that gave me pause, but I went with this action masterpiece here at number 3. Tree of Life, I've got this as well very high. Could have gone with other Malick pictures, I guess, but I've got The Tree of Life at number 2 because I do think it's Malick's career achievement. And number 1, I mean, if I have a movie as on my top 10 of all time list and it happened to come out in the last 25 years, yes, it's going to be at the top of this list. It is In the Mood for Love, Wong Kar-wai's definitive unrequited love story. I always describe this as watching it as watching two halves of a broken heart throb. It is just, no movie feels the way this film feels, even though so many have explored similar emotions. I feel quite comfortable having In the Mood for Love at number 1. But let me talk some more about that Jordan Peele decision, because I do think Us is probably a bit of a swerve, similar to your Petit Maman pick. And Get Out is where I could have and maybe should have gone. I think it maybe represents this era better and certainly had a bigger impact, announcing Peele as this voice. But when I think more about it, Us is not only, to my mind, the more intricately crafted film, but I do think it also represents the era from a wider angle. It not only considers race, but also considers class and consumerism, partly how those things are intertwined, partly how they're not. These are universal concerns as well. Us just details how when we make affluence our ultimate goal, it comes not only at the cost of others, what we take from others, but also the risk of losing ourselves, our very identities. And you have in this movie also that incredible double lead performance from Lupita Nyong'o.
We don't have anything here. This is our summer home.
Okay.
We just got in today, so.
Once upon a time, there was a girl, and the girl had a shadow.
Again, Get Out, so galvanizing, maybe the right pick, but I probably spent more time excavating Us. I've got a video essay out there somewhere on its use of Jeremiah 11:11. I just found so much to explore in this film. It's also one that kept opening up to me the more I spent time with it. So at number 5 for me.
I think that's a great choice, and I understand it. Maybe if I can briefly connect it back to what I was just talking about with Greta Gerwig. You know how strongly I feel about Lady Bird, another film I considered for this list. Almost put 2 Greta Gerwig films on, but I do think that Little Women is the greater achievement. I think there is more to excavate there, to use your word, certainly in terms of the filmmaking, and that makes sense. Sometimes filmmakers come out of the gate with amazing first films, as both Gerwig and Peele did, but then they build off that.
Yeah.
They get even more ambitious with those second films. My top 5 films of the last 25 years, Josh, I'm going to give you another swerve at number 5. The rest will absolutely be chalk. You probably could have predicted them. My number 5 will be a bit of a surprise. And I was going to say that it might be the only film on either of our lists that the other gave a negative review to.
Oh, boy.
Now.
Oh, Wolf of Wall Street.
It's not the Wolf of Wall Street. No.
Okay.
I don't know, of course, whether or not, looking back on the other 20 films I've mentioned, if any of those are movies you have felt negatively about. I don't think so until this choice. Now, with your choices, it turns out I was mixed on The Witch, as I am on Robert Eggers. I was kind of mixed on Borat. I think I gave it 3 stars. I did not go for Bamboozled the way you did. I think that's...
Yeah, not many people did then either, though.
That's another one I need to revisit. So we're going to play a little game. We're going to see if you can guess the film. I went to larsononfilm.com. 2 stars for Josh Larson. Has the stale, stifling air of a hospital waiting room.
Yikes.
Blank captures the boredom of a hospital waiting room, but misses out on another quality that is far more dramatic, the excruciating tension. Any ideas yet?
Man, it sounds like I was having a bad day. I can tell you that.
We'll see if you can figure it out from this. At its best, Blank echoes the spookiness of Picnic at Hanging Rock, yet like so many reverent movies based on acclaimed books, it's lifeless.
Oh, yeah. This is one I do need to revisit. The name is escaping me. Andrew Garfield. Wait, I'm falling asleep.
How dare you never let
me go. Yeah, I've always felt a little bad about this one because you have talked about it over the years and I haven't taken the time to revisit. But, I said what I said.
You did. You put it in writing. It's there forever. That is my number 5. We'll come back to that in a moment. At number 4, I too have The Royal Tenenbaums. At number 3, that Sam Van Halgren exercise of contemplating only putting one film from a director on a list did make me realize that, damn it, Inside Llewyn Davis is my favorite Coen Brothers film. It's the one I most cannot live without. That's why No Country got bumped out of the top 5. Inside Llewyn Davis is at 3. Number 2, Richard Linklater, Before Sunset. And number 1 is the movie I voted for, the movie I predicted. Turns out I was wrong. I was inaccurate. The movie I thought might actually win Filmspotting Madness, but it lost in the final to There Will Be Blood, David Lynch's Mulholland Drive. I know everybody says this when they put almost any kind of list together. Oh, the top few are interchangeable. But Josh, I'm telling you, I stared at those top 4 today, Mulholland, Before Sunset, Inside Llewyn Davis, and The Royal Tenenbaums, and at different points in the day contemplated making the case for each one of them as my number 1. That's how strongly I feel about each one of those films.
Yeah, I would say my top couple fell in pretty easily. Just again, as I said, when it's in the best of all time. That's a no-brainer. So
yes,
so it worked out a little easier for me.
Obviously, I want to talk about Never Let Me Go because that is the outlier choice here. And you said you have felt like you need to revisit it. Well, turns out it's celebrating its 15th anniversary. Maybe a bit of We Were Wrong Once, perhaps on the show, perhaps for bonus content. Alex Garland,
like to do that.
making his second appearance on my list, of course, as a writer. This is the Garland film, the Garland penned film that's an adaptation of the Kazuo Ishiguro novel starring Carey Mulligan, Andrew Garfield, Keira Knightley. They grow up together at a boarding school, and we come to realize, spoilers, that they are clones. And they're created for one purpose, which is to have their organs harvested and serve the population of, I suppose, normies. I don't know what they call them or if they have a name for them in the film, Josh. I think you may have read the book if I read your review correctly.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that was part of my issue too, in terms of expectations.
Yeah, I think it's so high on this list for me because all of the ideas I mentioned that kind of drove my list, the movies that ended up really resonating with me the most and the ideas that I wrestled with, that's what this movie is about. All of them. Mortality, denying, and then ultimately accepting this idea of completing, hoping that you can transcend your mortality through art. Andrew Garfield's character, Tommy, with his drawings, and Charlotte Rampling plays the head mistress at the school who uses art to try to prove that these children have souls, that they are children who have souls and they should be treated with more care and respect. The mysteries of love, my gosh, that love triangle, Kathy, Tommy, and Ruth, who are also like a Coretta family in a way. They don't choose to be put together, but they do choose to stay together and ultimately to come back together. And I won't strain, Josh, to relate a movie that takes place in England to America, except to say that it is very much a movie about society seeking a better life, a more comfortable way of life through technological means without fully being able to even comprehend the moral, ethical, or spiritual costs attached to it. And you lamented that you didn't feel like there was that much tension to it. And there certainly isn't traditional tension or dread, but there is a sort of inevitability. There is a sense of futility to them pushing back, which for me makes it all the more poignant. And I love this answer I came across a while back that Ishiguro gave to some criticism that was given to the book. He said lots of people raised this. And what was so fascinating about it, Josh, not only was ultimately his very profound, I think, answer, but the fact that he admitted that he was kind of hurt by it. He thought, maybe this is a flaw of the book. What did I do? What did I do wrong? It was people saying, well, they clearly are living in this dystopia. And once they realize what they're there for, why wouldn't they run? Why wouldn't they try to do something different? Why do they just kind of accept their fate? And this was his response. The fascinating thing for me is the way people respond to being dealt a really bad hand. If that's all you know, if that's the world you've grown up in, you cannot see the boundaries for which you have to run. You cannot see what you have to rebel against. And instead, you just try, sometimes heroically, to find love, friendship, something meaningful and decent within the horrific fate you've been given. This movie just hit me like a sledgehammer, Josh, when I saw it back in 2010. And that's why it's here at number 5.
Yeah. And like the very setting, I mean, it's why I read the book. Like this is like catnip for me, this sort of setting and idea and things it wants to explore. So, and the performers, I mean, I do know Garfield jumped out at me right away, and to see the others in the cast that they've got to be giving things I possibly missed that first time around. The excerpts you read, that sounded like a Josh bad day to me, for sure.
We'll see if we can play that game again sometime on the show. That's kind of fun. Read really negative lines to each other and see if we can guess the movie that we were just tearing apart. We don't do that. We probably don't do that enough on the show.
You go into the Larson on Film archives in the early years, you'll find.
Yeah, you had to see enough films.
A lot of posturing along those lines.
Posturing, good word for it. For our complete top 25, visit filmspotting.net/list. Next week, we'll continue looking back at the last 25 years with our favorite performers of the century so far. We're going to fight that out. We're going to draft our favorite actors and actresses. If there are any names you would love for us to not overlook, who should be our first overall choice? Let us know. Feedback at filmspotting.net. That's also where you can send any other comments about the show, because that is our show.
If you want to connect with us on social, you can find Adam and the show on Instagram and Facebook and Letterboxd. He's at Filmspotting. I'm also at those places as Larson on Film. We are independently produced and listener supported. You can support the show by joining the Filmspotting family at filmspottingfamily.com. You can listen early and ad-free. You'll also get a weekly newsletter from producer Sam, monthly bonus episodes, and access to the entire show archive. For show t-shirts, Filmspotting Fest posters, or other merch, go to filmspotting.net/shop.
In those Filmspotting archives, you can find many of the titles that made our top 25. Out streaming or on VOD this weekend, Nana's. Vince Vaughn risks everything by honoring his late mother by opening a restaurant with Nana's grandmothers as chefs with Susan Sarandon, Lorraine Bracco, and Talia Shire. In wide release, Clown in a Cornfield. Josh, here's the description. A sinister, grinning figure emerges from the cornfields to cleanse the town of Kettle Springs of its burdens. I volunteer as tribute. Can I have my burdens cleansed, please? We're going to get to a fun game here in a second, proposed by producer Sam. I think our listeners may know where this is going. Shadow Force. A bounty is put out for Kerry Washington and Omar Sy when they break the rules of the multinational special forces unit they belong to. Their crime, falling in love. Directed by Joe Carnahan, who made Narc and The Grey. And finally, Fight or Flight. Mercenary Josh Hartnett tracks down a target on a plane. That's the flight of the title, but ends up protecting her when they're surrounded by people trying to kill both of them. That's the fight of the title. So
it should really be Fight and Flight.
Yeah, it probably should. Take that up with somebody, including Nana's. You can only choose one. In fact, you have to choose one.
You have to
Which
choose
one is
one.
it?
You have to go to a movie
You
this
have
weekend.
to see one of these. Yeah.
And it has to be one of these.
Yeah.
Well, I've already pointed out the fatal flaw of Fight or Flight, so it's not going to be that.
Yeah.
I mean, Narc was really good, and I also like The Grey from Joe Carnahan. So do I do Shadow Force? No, I don't. I do Nana's.
Of course not.
It sounds delightful. Come on.
I mean, Lorraine
Vince-
Bracco, Talia Shire, Susan Sarandon,
and Vince Vaughn surrounded by them.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
I'll go see Shadow Force because I also really like The Grey, and I did finally catch up with Steven Soderbergh's Black Bag. What a delight. I can compare that to Shadow Force, two movies about special forces and breaking the rules and couples in love. We'll see which one's better.
Yeah, please don't hold it up to Black Bag. One of the best of the year. Come on.
Yeah, it is. Out in limited release. We didn't include this one. You can see April, an OBGYN faces accusations after a newborn's death. David Ehrlich says there isn't a horror director alive who wouldn't kill to create frames as tense, ominous, and viscerally captivating as those of Georgian filmmaker. And here's the fun part. Sam spelled this out phonetically for me, Josh.
Yeah.
But it's one of those cases where it's actually so much easier if you just read it the way it looks and don't try to do the phonetics at all.
Go for it. Okay,
so I'm going to say it. Dia Kulumbegashvili.
Nice.
Kulumbegashvili.
Better.
Close enough, I think.
We'll get there.
That's at the Siskel Film Center in Chicago. Next week, in addition to our Actors of the Century draft, we will have the next installment in our Andrei Tarkovsky marathon, Stalker.
Filmspotting is produced by Golden Joe Dassault and Sam Van Halgren. Without Sam and Golden Joe, this show wouldn't go. Our production assistant is Sophie Kempenaar. Special thanks to everyone at WBEZ Chicago. More information is available at wbez.org. For Filmspotting, I'm Josh Larson.
And I'm Adam Kempenaar. Thanks for listening.
This conversation can serve no purpose anymore. Goodbye.
Filmspotting is listener supported. Join the Filmspotting family at filmspottingfamily.com and get access to ad-free episodes, monthly bonus shows, our weekly newsletter, and for the first time, all in one place, the entire Filmspotting archive going back to 2005. That's at filmspottingfamily.com.